In a galaxy where humans were seen as fragile and unfit for the stars, one cadet dared to prove everyone wrong, not with brute strength, but with a heart that refused to quit. When sabotage, survival trials, and enemies disguised as allies tried to break him, he didn't just endure, he inspired a change across the universe. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel and show a thumbs up by liking the video. It helps us bring more powerful stories like this your way. Now let's jump into the story. Noah Brecken stood at the edge of the docking bay, his breath caught somewhere between awe and anxiety. All around him, the Universal Peace Corps Academy buzzed with life. Tall beings with glowing eyes floated silently past him, their robes trailing. Like mist, insectoid cadets clattered across the polished floors, antennae twitching. Others moved slowly, their massive forms covered in thick armor or scales. Every corner of the station felt alive with species Noah had only ever seen in books and briefings. And here he was, the only human, clutching his duffel bag like it might suddenly explain how he ended up at a place where he stood out like a paper kite in a hurricane dot as he took his first steps through the grand corridor. He tried to blend in, no easy task when you're the only one with just 2 legs and skin that didn't shimmer, glow, or hum. His boots clicked softly on the metal floors as holograms buzzed overhead, flashing schedules, assignments, and a welcome message that did not include the word human once. Noah Brecken, a voice called from behind him. He turned to see a tall reptilian being towering over him, green and silver scales glinting under the lights. The figure wore a sharp uniform with twin black stripes across the chest. "You're late," the officer said, eyes narrowing. His voice had a dry rasp like wind over gravel. "Physical orientation begins now. No excuses." "Sorry, sir. I got held up during re-entry protocols." "Something about atmospheric translation buffer delay," Noah replied. Standing straighter, the officer, Commander Tarnis, gave a slow, disapproving blink. "Humans always explain. Your kind likes words. Let's hope you'll learn to rely on action." Noah held back a reply, his jaw tight. He wasn't new to doubt. Back on Earth, people had already labeled him reckless for volunteering for an interspecies academy. But here, in the farthest reaches of known space, the doubt was colder, sharper. It wasn't just skepticism, it was dismissal. He followed Commander Tarnis through a twisting hallway into a massive chamber. It was the orientation arena, designed to test new cadets' physical readiness. Platforms floated mid-air. Gravity zones twisted the air. On one side, a small crowd had gathered, observing. The human with barely concealed interest or amusement, Noah. Someone called out cheerfully. A soft blur of blue tentacles waved at him from across the room. It was Junari, a water-based species cadet who had taken an interest in him during transit orientation. She floated above a puddle pad, her shimmering skin pulsating gently with excitement. "Don't let Tarnis scare you. He's all bark and very sharp teeth." "I heard that," Tarnis muttered from the side, but said nothing more. Noah gave Junari a grateful nod, then turned to the panel indicating his test. The strength assessment, great. A 3-limbed rock beast had just bench-pressed something that looked like a freight drone. A flying cadet with wings the size of dining tables flapped overhead and lifted a metal block as if it weighed nothing. When Noah stepped up, someone snickered. It was Dekra, a broad-shouldered cadet with orange skin and tusks, clearly bred for war. "Your species still uses oxygen tanks for deep dives. And you think you'll last here?" Noah ignored him. He'd trained for this back home, grueling hours in high-gravity simulations, underwater breath holds, pain endurance tests. He wasn't going to outlift a beast with 6 arms. But he could finish the test. And that's exactly what he did. No records broken, no gasps of admiration. Just quiet murmurs of, "He didn't quit." Next came the adaptation spread, a gravity Maze that twisted pressure and resistance every 10 meters. Noah moved through it like a storm survivor walking through. Wind and rain slow, but always forward. When he stumbled, he got up. When others blinked in confusion, he moved with instinct. Your stress response is unusually controlled, Junari said afterward, scanning his vitals with one of her tentacles. Most new species fail to complete that run on the first try. You endured. Noah managed a tired grin. Back on Earth, we have this saying. One step at a time, I'm just following it. That night, in the dim-lit dormitory he shared with 3 other cadets, Noah lay on the lower bunk, staring up at the metal slats above. His muscles ached. His arms were scraped. But inside, something was growing, something stronger than soreness. Remembered how Tarnus had looked at him during the test. Not with approval, not yet, but less like he was a walking joke. Progress. He had come here expecting hard training. What he hadn't expected was how deeply alone he would feel. But perhaps that was part of the challenge. Being the first meant being misunderstood, being doubted. And still getting up. As he drifted off to sleep, a voice message pinged on his datapad. It was from the command center. Survival simulation begins at dawn. Cadet Brecken, report to launch. Bay. Noah closed his eyes, exhaustion pulling at him. Survival simulation. That was the big one. The trial cadets whispered about in every cafeteria and hallway, and he was going to face it. With the whole galaxy watching. Asterisk. The simulated sun had barely begun to glow above the horizon when Noah Brecken stepped into the cold steel bay of the launch deck. His uniform still bore the faint stretch marks of a rushed wash, and his muscles protested each movement with quiet defiance. Across from him, other cadets were assembling, silent, tense, and watching. The rumor had already spread. The human was being paired with Dekra for the survival trial. Noah's stomach tightened. Dekra was a warrior species known for brute strength, natural armor, and absolutely zero tolerance for weakness. Since Noah had arrived at the Universal Peace Corps Academy, Dekra had made it clear that he didn't consider humans worth the oxygen they used. Today, they'd be working together if Dekra didn't decide to just leave him behind. Cadets, said Captain Reval, stepping up to address the group. His voice was firm but quiet, like a warning carried on wind. You are about to begin the Outlier Trial, our most advanced survival simulation. You will be dropped into an unpredictable environment. Your mission is simple. Reach the extraction beacon and retrieve the data capsule. What happens in between depends on your decisions. He looked over the group, his gaze lingering on Noah. Just long enough to be noticed. There will be no assistance. No second chances. This is where we learn who adapts and who collapses. The simulation chamber activated, shifting the entire room around them. Walls folded away, replaced by an endless forest of violet trees and thick air that smelled like burnt metal. The environment had been perfectly designed to test every kind of cadet. What it wasn't designed for, Noah thought grimly, was kindness. Dekra didn't wait for orders. Stay close if you want to live, human, he grunted, his voice rough as broken stone. And don't slow me down. He moved forward through the brush like a tank with legs, flattening bushes and pushing aside low-hanging branches without hesitation. Noah followed, careful to watch the trees and the strange movements in the shadows. His wrist display flickered with the soft pulse signals from unknown life forms nearby. There's movement east of us, he said quietly. Probably not friendly. I don't need your guesses, Dekra snapped. If there's danger, I'll deal with it. They pressed on for an hour, the path growing harder and the air heavier. Creatures rustled through the underbrush, but none attacked. Still, Noah couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them, staying just out of sight. He scanned again. We're being circled. The patterns are too deliberate. Before Dekra could respond, a blur shot from the trees, an 8-limbed predator with teeth that shimmered like blades. It landed directly on Dekra, knocking him off his feet. The larger cadet roared, claws slashing, but the creature's grip tightened. Noah reacted instantly. He drew his stun stick, charged it to max, and fired. The bolt struck the predator between its armored shoulders. It screamed and released Dekra, vanishing into the brush. Dekra got to his feet slowly, clutching his side. "You hesitated," he growled, wincing. "I waited for a clear shot," Noah replied. "You're welcome." Dekra said nothing, his eyes scanning the trees. Then he moved forward again without another word. They continued their journey with quiet tension, but the air had shifted between them. Reaching the crashed beacon site wasn't the end, it was the beginning of another trial. A pack of the same predators waited, drawn by the energy signature of the capsule. Dekra charged in without strategy, swinging and slashing, but the creatures were fast and coordinated. Noah kept moving, watching, adjusting. He noticed the leader larger, slower, always barking out high-pitched signals to the others. He threw a sonic flare at the leader, stunning it temporarily and confusing the rest. The pack scattered, uncoordinated and disoriented. Dekra used the moment to smash through their lines. "Clever," he admitted breathlessly. "You fight with your brain. We can't all be born with armor," Noah shot back, grinning despite himself. Together, they retrieved the data capsule. But as they began the hike back, the real betrayal happened. As they climbed a steep ridge, Dekra suddenly swung his arm outward, slamming his full weight into Noah's chest. The blow sent him tumbling down the slope, landing hard against a jagged tree root. Pain exploded in his ribs, and his vision blurred. Above, Dekra looked down. "Oops," he said flatly. "Training accident." Noah gasped for air, each breath sharp and cutting. Something was definitely broken ribs, maybe a shoulder. The simulation safety system began to activate. He could feel the familiar buzz of evacuation protocols. But he wasn't done. Gritting his teeth, Noah reached for the nearest branch and pulled himself up. The pain was unbearable, a wave of heat and pressure rolling over him, but he stood. Not because he wasn't hurt, but because quitting was never an option. He picked up the capsule, adjusted his dislocated shoulder with a painful jerk, and looked up at Dekra. "We still have to get out," Noah said through clenched teeth. Dekra didn't respond immediately. For the first time, his face showed something like uncertainty. Together, they finished the mission, and back in the control room, Captain Rival said nothing. But his hand hovered over the pause button and never pressed it. Noah had passed the test, not by overpowering anyone, but by refusing to be broken. 2 weeks after the survival trial, Noah Brecken felt almost human again if you ignored the tightness in his ribs and the occasional stab of pain when he twisted the wrong way. His name had stopped being whispered with disbelief and had started being spoken with curiosity. Cadets who once avoided him now nodded in passing. Even Dekra, who had once made it a daily habit to insult him, had gone unusually quiet. The atmosphere around the academy had shifted. Still, Noah never let his guard down. Respect, he knew, was fragile here on a quiet morning. Lieutenant Voza's stern but fair engineering instructor announced that all cadets would be participating in a critical training mission, zero-gravity station repair. It was one of the most intense emergency drills in the program, simulating hull damage during space combat. Cadets would work in small teams to find and fix breaches in a derelict station module while floating in vacuum. "This isn't just about patching metal," Voss told them. "It's about making decisions when every second counts." Noah was assigned to Team 4 with Junari, and to his surprise, Creel, a sharp-eyed cadet from the frost-covered world of Novas. Creel was quiet, but not in a peaceful way. He had a habit of listening without blinking, as though waiting for someone to slip. Something about him always made Noah uneasy. They suited up in the airlock chamber, checking oxygen levels and seals. Noah's reading seemed a little low, nothing alarming, but lower than usual for a freshly filled tank. He tapped the gauge twice. The numbers didn't change. Just the sensors acting up, he mumbled and moved on. As the airlock hissed and gravity shut off, the world flipped. They pushed off and drifted through the connecting corridor, their boots and gloves magnetizing to surfaces when needed. The simulated damage in the training module had been randomized, meaning no team knew what kind of failure they'd face. Their task was to find the problem and fix it before the system triggered an automatic lockdown. Their section of the module looked like a shattered laboratory. Broken pipes drifted aimlessly, and cracked panels blinked dimly. A faint hum echoed through the walls, a warning vibration that meant the structure wasn't fully stable. Junari scanned the area and pointed to a faint shimmer in the wall. "Tiny fracture," she said through comms. "Could widen fast." They got to work, coordinating like they'd trained. Junari held the support beam steady with her tentacles while Noah moved carefully with the sealing foam. Creel floated just above, placing metal patches as directed. The work was going smoothly, but Noah could feel something wasn't right. He was breathing harder than he should. His limbs felt heavy. The display in his helmet showed a new warning: oxygen levels dropping faster than expected. "Junari, check my tank," Noah said, steadying himself against the wall. She floated over and examined the valve. "This wasn't sealed right," she said, frowning. "It looks tampered with." Noah blinked. "You're serious?" "I've repaired enough tanks to know what a clean seal looks like." Before Noah could reply, a loud alarm filled their headsets. "Unstable breach detected in Sector C," the automated voice said. "Evacuation protocol pending." "We have to go," Junari said. "They'll be locked in if we don't help." "The manual override is in the next corridor," Noah said. "We can get them out before the system closes the bulkhead." Creel hesitated. "If we leave our section, we'll fail the drill." "Not if we save lives," Noah replied, already moving. They reached the corridor just as the heavy bulkhead door began to slide into place. Noah and Junari squeezed through with seconds to spare. Creel followed, narrowly avoiding the seal. Inside Sector C, they found chaos. 2 cadets floated unconscious, their suits damaged from the simulated explosion. A third was desperately trying to seal multiple fractures. Noah rushed forward, applying temporary patches with what little strength he had left. His breathing was now ragged. The red light on his oxygen display had begun to blink. "Emergency supply unit on the wall," Junari said urgently. "Use it now." Noah looked at the oxygen backup, then at the unconscious cadets. "They need it more than I do," he said, attaching the supply to one of the fallen. His hands were shaking now. Every movement felt like lifting a mountain. Creel, surprisingly, didn't argue. Instead, he moved to support Noah, stabilizing his position while Junari worked on sealing the final breach. "You're at your limit," Creel muttered. "Your tank was messed with." "I figured," Noah replied, the words barely audible. Creel looked at him, eyes narrowed. "It wasn't me," he said. "But I saw who had access to the suits this morning." Noah couldn't answer. His vision was going dark at the edges. His last conscious thought was of the sealed corridor behind him and the cadets he refused to leave behind. Then everything went black. When he woke, the lights above him were too bright. Beeping monitors surrounded him. A soft hum of machinery filled the medical bay. Dr. Senya stood nearby, arms crossed and datapad glowing. "Back among the living," she said gently. Noah tried to sit up, but his body didn't cooperate. "How long?" "2 days," she replied. "Severe oxygen deprivation. You were seconds away from permanent damage." Before he could respond, the door opened. Captain Revo entered with Admiral Liren Vale at his side. The Admiral's presence made the room feel 10 degrees colder. She looked at Noah with piercing calm. Your tank was sabotaged, she said. We've identified the culprit. He's no longer part of this academy. Noah looked at her in disbelief. Why? Jealousy, fear, the usual mix, Rival replied. He thought if you failed, it would prove humans didn't belong here. He proved the opposite, Dr. Senya added, showing them the oxygen stats. You stayed functional at levels that should have shut down your brain. Admiral Vale studied Noah. You've done more than survive. You've shown us what human endurance really means. And now the galaxy is watching. Noah lay back overwhelmed. He had only ever wanted to prove he belonged. Now, without meaning to, he'd done something more. He'd changed minds. Maybe even history. Noah Brecken walked through the academy. Corridors slower than usual, not because of pain, but because everything felt heavier now. Not in a bad way, more like he was carrying something invisible. Since waking up in the medical bay after the sabotage, he hadn't had a single quiet moment. Instructors stopped him to ask questions. Cadets stared with a strange mix of curiosity and respect. And just yesterday, Admiral Liren Vale had informed him that the Alliance Council had officially ordered the formation of new crisis response teams that would require at least one human member. Noah had never set out to be anyone special. He came here to prove humans belonged in the academy, that they weren't weak or fragile. But somewhere along the way, he had become more than a cadet. He had become a test case, a reason for change. And now, everything he did seemed to echo. Louder than before. It wasn't just the instructors who had changed. Even Dekra, once his biggest critic, had shifted. The gruff warrior no longer ignored him in the halls. In fact, Dekra had requested that their final combat trial be held together. I want to test myself properly, he said. Not against a weakling, but against the one who wouldn't stay down. Noah had accepted. The match was scheduled for the following morning. That night, Noah couldn't sleep. He sat alone on the Academy's highest observation deck, watching the stars. Junari floated nearby, her bioluminescent skin pulsing softly. You're quiet, she said, her voice more like a gentle breeze than speech. I've been quiet. Since I got here, Noah replied. Not like this. This is the kind of quiet that comes before something big. He didn't argue. She was right. Tomorrow wasn't just a test, it was a symbol. If he lost, it wouldn't erase what he'd done. But if he won and won fairly, it would show everyone what humans were truly capable of. Not just in moments of crisis, but in focused, deliberate strength. The next morning, the arena was packed. Cadets from every species lined the upper rings. Even the instructors were unusually still. At the center stood Dekra, tall and powerful, arms folded, tusks gleaming under the lights. Across from him, Noah stood with a calm expression. His ribs had healed, his lungs were strong, and his mind was sharper than ever. He didn't feel like an outsider anymore. The signal sounded .dekra, charged first, just like always. A wall of muscle and force. Noah didn't try to meet him head-on. He shifted to the side, ducked low, and used Dekra's momentum against him. The crowd murmured. Noah's style was different from any other cadet. They were trained to stand firm, block, counter. But Noah moved like water, adjusting with each step, bending without breaking. The fight was long. Dekra's strength gave him the upper hand in close combat, but Noah's endurance and strategy kept him in the match. Every time he was knocked down, he got back up. Every time Dekra thought he had him cornered, Noah changed. Tactics. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Sweat poured down Noah's face. Dekra's breathing grew heavier. Finally, in a clean move, Noah slipped behind Dekra, locked in a controlled hold, and brought him to the ground. Dekra struggled, then tapped the mat submission. The arena was silent for a beat. Then it erupted. Into applause. Noah stood, breathless, and reached out his hand. Dekra looked at it, then took it without hesitation. Well fought, Dekra said. You've earned more than my respect. You've earned your place here. Commander Revel stepped forward, addressing the crowd. What you witnessed today was not just a victory in combat. It was a demonstration of the qualities that define a true officer: adaptability, focus, and the will to rise again and again. As Noah left the arena, cadets clapped him on the back. Some he barely knew, others who had ignored him for weeks. Marin, the quiet engineer cadet, handed him a small metal token. "I made it after the survival trial," he said. "Didn't think you'd need a good luck charm. Looks like I was right." Later that evening, during the final ceremony for the term, Admiral Vale took the stage. "This term," she said, "we have seen history unfold. For the first time, a human cadet has not only survived, but thrived at the Universal Peace Corps' Academy. Cadet Noah Brecken has reminded us that true strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes it's the quiet kind, the kind that refuses to stop, no matter the pain." She looked out at the audience. "Next year, 5 more human cadets will join our ranks, and we expect them not to follow in Noah's footsteps, but to create their own. Because that is the legacy we now embrace." Afterward, Noah returned to the observation deck. The stars were no closer than they'd ever been, but they somehow felt more reachable. Junari joined him again, silent for a while. "You did it," she finally said. "No," Noah replied, a small smile forming. "We did it, and now the real journey begins." The stars twinkled above, distant yet inviting. For the first time, Noah didn't just feel like a visitor in the galaxy. He felt like he belonged.